Just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tavis Smiley with a final word here about the upcoming Left Coast Forum on Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. As you know by now, our major keynoters include Professor Richard Wolff and Dr. Cornel West. LA Mayor Karen Bass will be there as well. But listen to some of these plenaries: fighting for Black students and educational equity, resilience under Trumpism, how to stay sane under fascism, the battle for democracy, what's at stake in 2026, healthcare under attack, fighting Trump's cuts, and building patient power from seed to system, building a local food economy in South LA, theater as a force for change, voices from Palestine. The Constitution is not self-reinforcing. Racism on the left, building communities of care, federal changes and their impact on healthcare in LA County, Committee for the First Amendment, and more. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. We'll see you there.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. I sure hope Tavis considers bringing the state of Black America back. That Left Coast Forum sounds like something that needs to hit the road because I think that Tavis Smiley is the only person I know on planet Earth who has the capacity to bring leaders from every community in every community together to have this conversation. I do know that the technology exists for Tavis's show to be on the road. Give my boss a little push here because his leadership nationally is very necessary at this hour. Looking forward to the Left Coast Forum, looking forward to the discussion about youth and education, looking forward to our sanity under Trumpisms. In this hour, our very special guest is Atiba, former executive director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. He's a strategic alliance consultant and president of Party Politics US. He's worked on TV political contributor for BNC News, The Heat, In the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, and iHeartRadio, GovExec 96.3 WHUR, and One America News Network. Atiba has a fascinating series of essays that he's been writing on a concept that makes nothing but messaging sense to me, putting people first. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Jesse, it's always good to be with you.
Always a pleasure to have you on and to be with you on your show, Conversations with Atiba. Atiba, why Why putting people first?
You know, if you don't mind, let me take a step back. You know, I wrote putting people first because I feel like I made a mistake in 2016 and 2024. And when I say that, I feel like I didn't do enough during those election cycles the way that I did in 2020 and 2008 and 2012. And from that standpoint, I decided that I was going to go back to my past. You know, when I say my past, to 9-year-old Atiba, who was on a plane with his family, my parents, going to live in Africa. We went there to live in Bamako, Mali for 2 years. And it was there that I started this journey in terms of how I looked at politics and why I thought being a Republican at the time was the best thing for me when I turned 18. So when we talk about putting people first, a lot of it has to do with what I saw as a child, what I saw, what I thought was abject, real poverty, what I saw that still has left an imprint in my mind. You know, we talk about healthcare now, we've got a government shutdown, that we're talking about healthcare costs. What I saw in Bamako, Mali was what happens when you don't have access to healthcare at all. And when I say that, I mean, I talk in the essays about our guard night watchman coming by the house one day to say to my father that his children were literally dying from chicken pox. For the fact that when we went into town, I saw people with no fingers and lost limbs because they had leprosy. These are things that left a really strong imprint on my mind. And they're kind of the nucleus in terms of how I started the essay, but I really started it because of what happened in 2016 and in 2024.
That is fairly extraordinary because it seems to me at least you've tied it to the politics of the transactionalism and transaction nature of our government and government service. We have about a minute before we come forward. 2016, obviously an election year to be remembered for all times. Obviously, it elected Donald Trump the first time as president of the United States, and again in 2024. Any parallels there?
Yeah, we had 2 women who were running for president. And in between there, we had Joe Biden run in 2020. So, you know, we've had 3 election cycles where the same person won. The person lost one of those elections and won 2. And, you know, in terms of the questions, in terms of what were the parallels, on the surface, it's that there were 2 women that were running. But I think there was a deeper piece in terms of the connection, in terms of why both of them lost.
We're going to explore that depth when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Wealthy Wednesdays and Conversations with Atiba on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Atiba when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
On Thursday evening, November 6th, you're invited to the next KBLA Talk 1580 Altadena Town Hall meeting. This time, we're convening at Victory Bible Church, 1497 North Hill Avenue in Pasadena. The town hall will once again be broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580 from 4 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, November 6th. But you're invited to join us in person for this urgent and necessary community conversation. The theme for this Altadena Eaton Canyon Fire Town Hall is Understanding the Wildfire Recovery Compensation Fund. The primary focus of this gathering is to inform residents about Southern California Edison's newly launched Wildfire Recovery Compensation Program and provide clarity on eligibility and the claims process. There are plenty of questions to be asked, and only KBLA Talk 1580 has the right moderators to ask the tough questions, the right stakeholders and community activists to share their insights, and we have confirmed the participation of corporate executives from Southern California Edison to answer our queries. So be sure to join us at Victory Bible Church in Pasadena, 1497 North Hill Avenue on Thursday, November 6th. The event is free and open to the public, but registration is required at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Light refreshments will be served immediately following the live town hall. This KBLA Talk 1580 Altadena Rising Town Hall is brought to you by Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers and the Black Freedom Fund.
The Black Hollywood Education and Resource Center proudly presents its 27th annual Real Black Men Short Film Showcase. Join us Saturday, October 25th at the Writers Guild Theater, 135 South Doheny Drive in Beverly Hills, California. The showcase will feature over 20 films by emerging Black male filmmakers from across the country, ready to let their stories be seen, voices be heard, and visions come to life. Saturday, October 25th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tickets are on sale now on eventbrite.com. For more information, call 323-957-4656 or email bherc@bherc.org.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With the Capital One Venture X card, you earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy. Plus, you get premium benefits at a collection of luxury hotels when you book on Capital One Travel. And with Venture X, you get access to over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. Open up a world of travel possibilities with the Capital One Venture X card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Wealthy Wednesdays and Conversations with Atiba, who's written nine, I guess it is, essays on putting people first. When we came forward, we were talking about the parallels between 2016 and 2024 in both elections. In 2016, Hillary Clinton ran against the strong man. And in 2024, an African-American woman, Kamala, ran against the strong man. And a little less than a week ago, we had a No Kings rally. But in two elections, we voted against the Queens. Atiba, let's dig a little bit deeper in your thinking.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse, for that. I think we want to go back to 2008 and really looking at how did Barack Obama win that election. Again, going backwards. It's very interesting just to keep going backwards to Kennedy, because Obama was compared to Kennedy because he brought about hope. But a lot of his message was a collective message of hope, which was similar to President Clinton, which is where I actually got putting people first. Clinton won in 1992 after 12 years of Republicans, 8 years with President Reagan, 8 years with President Bush. And I felt like, okay, well, if we're seeing the current president rebrand a message of Make America Great Again, which really came from Ronald Reagan in 1980, how do you combat that message? After 12 years, we saw back in from 1980 until 1992. And it was, okay, what did President Clinton do in terms of 92? And it was not just putting people first, but you had a very flawed candidate. We seem to forget that presidential candidates back then, if they were considered to have dodged the draft during the Vietnam War, that was taboo. And yet he still won. He had allegations with Jennifer Flowers and others of sexual improprieties in terms of infidelity in his marriage, and yet he still won. And he won those elections because he kept the message about the economy and he kept the message on people, and he talked about collective hope, not the hope in one leader, but the hope in a collective body. And so I think, when you go back to Obama, Obama was not just faced with the fact that he was running for president and he was running against a former first lady. He was also a U.S. senator. He was also faced with the fact that he was African American, and even more so, his father is African, his mother was white, and yet he still was able to win an election in what is considered to be a transformative election. And the transformative nature of that was still, he went back to talking about this wasn't about him, even though people tried to point the finger and the opposition did. He said it was about us. And what he did, I think, effectively, and some people will say he gave all these incredible speeches in the course of his public life. I still believe that the best speech that he ever gave was the speech he gave in Philadelphia on race, because he had to talk about himself and he still made it about people. So when you look at 2016 and 2024, some of the similarities that are there, there is still a roadmap for a woman to win an election. But part of it is also comes on us in terms of how do we propel and how do we move them up. And part of that is not falling for what we hear and what we see. And part of that is what is a culture war. And I think that in both instances, both got caught up in terms of they were strong amongst their base, but where did their message go outside of the base that was able to bring people in?
I think that's brilliant. I didn't look at it in that particular context or the data points that you established between Kennedy all the way to Clinton, all the way to Obama, and then the elections of 2016 and 2024. Isn't it a factor that that women who have largely been responsible for progressive victories around the country in those presidential elections, that we've sent a very strong signal in 2016 and 2024 that this whole conversation of we're not ready for a woman, and we get the complete antithesis, a strong man, an authoritarian, who's tearing down the White House, the People's House. I saw a post earlier this morning from Hillary Clinton where she says that he's tearing down our house. It's not his house. It's our house, referencing the White House. And in this moment, I'm thinking, have we come to terms with that problem? Or as soon as 2028, it's still something that we have to reckon with if we want to reestablish any reasonable sense of order in our society and in our government?
President Obama in 2016 in his last speech reiterated something he said throughout. You know, it was never about him. It was never about Michelle. It was always about us. What we are seeing right now is, yes, is an assault on democracy, is an assault on the framework, and the guardrails are down. Who is the adult in the room? When we look at what's happening with the Democrats right now, let's go back to 1995. I speak about this in the essay also. At 1995, I'm working for the Environmental Protection Agency. At that point, I had no idea that the government could actually run out of money. But I was one of 800,000 people that found out, well, we're being furloughed. And then there was another one that happened in January of 1996. Democrats, led by President Clinton, where you had Clinton, won that conversation because the president stayed focused on talking about the economy. And he kept talking about this is what they're trying to do. And what were they trying to do? It's similar to what's happening right now. Cuts to Medicare, which was going to hurt seniors, cuts to the environment, cuts to education. What are we seeing right now? An assault on tax subsidies as it relates to the Affordable Care Act, assault on the environment and climate, assault on in terms of having people who are working in special education in the Department of Education being laid off. It's the same thing happening all over again. We just have to keep going back to the past. What the difference is now is that Democrats don't have the White House, but they do have a voice. And we're not hearing from Hakeem Jeffries or from Schumer. We're hearing, oh, well, we're doing this to save and to protect healthcare costs for Americans, when I think that the overall real strong message is to talk about the economy, because everyone, regardless of whether or not they're going to be hit by those tax subsidies, everyone is finding that when they go to a grocery store, they're paying $10, $11, even more for eggs and milk, and et cetera, and more for all these basic essentials, which means that if when you open up your wallet, you have a lot less money in it.
You know, I'm wondering, because actually I know some people very close who were responsible for not only writing President Obama's speech on the Jeremiah Wright episode, but also had some input in the 1996 speech on race. And I'm wondering in this moment, because if I remember that speech correctly, there wasn't as much emphasis on the role that women play in our country and in the role that they play in our body politics. And yet, the vast majority of households in the United States, if the statistic still holds, at that time, were headed by a woman where there was no man, which means so many of these issues like eggs and bacon and chicken and what to eat are profoundly affected by how women feel who run these households, who raise other people's children but don't have time to raise their own. And I'm wondering if we have come to terms with the idea that men tend to follow women to the polling place. They're the ones who insist we've got to vote because they're the ones in the grocery stores. They're the ones who have to work multiple jobs. They're the ones who during that period were upwardly mobile. And I'm thinking in this moment that while the government is shut down over the objections of the Democrats on the questions of key provisions of Obamacare, I'm wondering if we are missing the household issues that will profoundly impact nearly 2 million people who will be kicked off of food stamps in the next 3 weeks.
I think that I think all those things are very important, but I think they have to fall under an umbrella of the economy. I think that whether or not it's a woman leading a household or a man, a grandmother or a child or a sibling, that the fundamental aspect of America is about money. And when you get away from that conversation, when you fall into the conversations about culture wars, and I talked about the fact that I was a registered Republican. I was a registered Republican who built trust among people who put their arms around me, took me for walks, and helped me understand how they kept winning, even if they were in the minority. And so when you talk about women right now, women came out incredibly strong after the 2016 elections because they were just ticked off about the fact that Hillary Clinton had lost. But part of the parallel, you asked about parallel between Hillary and Kamala, was the message. Stronger Together was a great message, but how do you define it and how is that putting more money in my pocket? What the president did was talked about making America great again, which brought and instilled in certain people this idea that, oh, making America great again means I'm going to what? Have more money in my pocket. The country is going to be what? Stronger. It's going to go back to where it was working well for me under Reagan. Some of you may remember, or you may remember in 1984, the campaign speech was it's morning, and that picture that people gave was like, okay, everything is better. The question that I leave or that I keep asking about 2016 and 2024, Hillary got caught up because there was the allegations of the email server and what have you, and she ended up having to answer those questions. Well, if you go back to 1992, President Clinton was affected by the whole things about Jennifer Flowers and draft dodging, but he said in a Dover, Delaware speech that the character issue today is not necessarily me, it's about a president in terms of President Bush, who is fighting for his political life and asking you to vote for him, even though he raised taxes. The character issue today is not that. The character issue is you. What are we doing to help you? Again, the question has to keep going back to you. And so when I look at the conversations that I've had with friends and the debates that I've had with friends about, well, they won't elect her because she's a woman. It's deeper than that because people felt, and I have an aunt who just turned 106 years old 2 weeks ago. It's a deeper issue than just saying she's a woman. That's the outward part. That's the part that they're able to attack and get you on your sensitivities and keep the conversation from staying on what's going into your pocket. Because right now, Americans everywhere, it doesn't matter how wealthy or what have you, every single American is affected by what's going on, which is why we're seeing in town hall meetings in the middle America of people yelling at their congressional members, asking them, what are you doing about my Medicare? What are you doing about my Medicaid? Why? Because it's taking money out of their pocket.
You know what, Atiba, I want to offer a critique that I think is also helpful. That when I go and vote, voting for me, and I'm isolating myself, recognizing that there are 350 million people who may have a different point of view on why they vote. I believe in voting my economic interests. I think most Americans vote their economic interest. I also believe in what's morally right, the character of the leadership that might look at the stranger on the Jericho road, that might look at a hungry family, that might look at the need to be a shepherd of sorts of the sheep, which is, from my theological and Christian tradition. But what makes racism so irrational and the appeal to race so irrational is that it moves people from thinking about their economic interests to focusing on all of the issues that you suggest might have played a deleterious effect in voting for either Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris in 2016 and 2024. And I can't get this out of my mind. Lyndon Johnson. I'll tell you what's at the bottom of it all. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't mind you picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on, and he'll probably empty his pockets for you. I raise that question because I'm engaged in an experiment with my own life. Not just a political experiment for something that I'm also doing, but an experiment with my own life. How do you unite people who, for the most part, find themselves needing Medicaid, needing Medicare, needing these serious economic issues in terms of government subsidies to provide for their basic needs, including but not limited to food, when the distraction for race is so much more profound? And until we come to terms with the race issue, I think it's very difficult to get some folks to even vote their own economic interests. I say that to say, I'm not even so sure that tariffs are actually benefiting the economy. I can tell you what they're doing on the ground in my experiment. Soybean farmers in rural America, certainly in my experiment, soybean farmers all across this country, lettuce growers, corn growers cannot get their products to market. And at the same time that they cannot get their products to market, they're being sold a message that somehow whatever's going on in Chicago, Los Angeles, New Orleans, Memphis, Tennessee, they're going to stop blacks from doing something, and they're way out of their territories. Stephen Miller gave a speech yesterday in Memphis, Tennessee. We're going to clean up these streets. And the farmers themselves are not speaking out as loudly for these economic issues that we share in common as they are reacting to the racial issues that Donald Trump and his minions are advancing. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. We're going to have more conversation with Atiba when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. Conversations with Atiba on Wealthy Wednesdays.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A private investigator says he's identified who last drove the abandoned Tesla belonging to black singer David, where 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body was found in Hollywood.
I'm certain I know who it is. I can't say, but there is surveillance from the 29th.
Investigator Steve Fisher told KTLA he reviewed neighborhood footage from late July and turned it over to police. Former President Barack Obama will join Democrat Mikey Sherrill at a November 1st rally in Newark ahead of New Jersey's governor's race. President Trump backing Republican Jack Ciattarelli praised him on Truth Social while criticizing Sherrill. A new Rutgers Eagleton poll shows Sherrill leading by 5 points. And the White House is denying reports that President Trump is considering pardoning Sean Diddy Combs, who's serving 4 years for prostitution-related charges. TMZ claims Trump may commute his sentence this week, but officials tell NBC there's no truth to the report. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the takeover? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell announced Wednesday morning that the league is not replacing Latino superstar Bad Bunny as the main performer for the Super Bowl halftime show. Bad Bunny was picked in September by the NFL to perform at the Super Bowl on February 8th in Santa Clara, California. Conservative groups and some Republicans have been pressuring the NFL to take the Puerto Rico native off the show because of his criticism of President Trump and Trump's immigration policies. When Trump heard that Goodell is not replacing Bad Bunny, he called the decision crazy and ridiculous. This is an interesting situation for the NFL. Many of the league's 32 owners are privately Trump supporters and have donated to both of his presidential campaigns. The real test for the NFL is whether conservatives can convince advertisers to join them in boycotting the Super Bowl. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
The Black Hollywood Education and Resource Center proudly presents its 27th annual Real Black Men Short Film Showcase. Join us Saturday, October 25th at the Writers Guild Theater, 135 South Doheny Drive in Beverly Hills, California. The showcase will feature over 20 films by emerging Black male filmmakers from across the country, ready to let their stories be seen, voices be heard, and visions come to life. Saturday, October 25th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tickets are on sale now on eventbrite.com. For more information, call 323-957-4656 or email bherc@bherc.org. Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money, or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Wealthy Wednesdays and our conversations with Atiba, who has written 9 essays that can be found on his website. I'm going to give Atiba an opportunity to share with us how we might dig deeper into the essays that he has written in just a moment. But to my point, just before we came forward, I was listening to the commercial break, and there was an emphasis on Donald Trump's reaction to Bad Bunny performing at the halftime show, which from my perspective is a major distraction. I don't care who performs at the halftime show at the NFL. I wouldn't care. In fact, this year it would be more appropriate if there were a number of historically Black colleges and universities that had a battle of the bands in the middle of the Super Bowl, surrounded by John Deere tractors, between Black colleges and students trying to get to school. That's an economic issue, and the burden that costs for college are being levied against families, and the pain that farmers are feeling during the Super Bowl ought to be highlighted, and that attention ought to be brought to the American people. In my opinion, when we put people first, that's a solid message, Atiba. Atiba, welcome forward to your show.
Thank you, Jesse. And first off, thank you for your critique, before we went to the break. And yes, all those things, but all these other things too, are meant to be distractions. I'm just constantly remembering and appreciative of the time that I got to spend with Congressman John Lewis and what he signed in my book. His copy of his autobiography was "Keep Your Eyes on the Prize." And when I get to sign my books, I write, because of him, I write, "Nothing in politics is what it seems." So, we have all these different things that are going on, and it's just so reminiscent for me to Jesse of scripture, of the fact that when we look at the story, for instance, of Moses and, magicians and I'm like, we often look at scripture for its literal meaning, but not understanding the figurative meaning. And I think that the figurative meaning for me is that was representative of the distractions, and the distractions come in different things, whether or not it's your intention or what your desires or what have you, or what is put in front of us. So you mentioned the Super Bowl. There are a lot of distractions that happen at the Super Bowl. I mean, including, multi-million-dollar commercial ads trying to get you to go spend your money.
True that.
So, the football game it has an impact on those players. It has an impact on their families. But, the impact that it has on us is that it pulls so many people together from so many different families and religious backgrounds and ethnic backgrounds and globally to watch this game. And I think that overall, what I'm looking for personally, and I'm finding that people, as they're reading these essays, I think they're also looking, and my friends overseas are looking to see, why do Democrats keep losing elections? And you said before the break that when you go to vote not on the economy, but also on social issues or issues in terms of how they affect you and impact you, which fair. I think that's what people go when they're voting for your city council member, your county officials, your mayor, even governor. But when we're looking at the larger picture during every presidential election, and this is where, and we'll go back to Kamala and Hillary, is the question becomes, who and how are they attracting the independent voter?
Mm.
And we always hear this one thing, that we hear that the candidates have to come either left to center or right to center. But either way, they have to come to center. You don't get anything done, in my opinion, by talking about anything about not related to the economy before you get into office. If you do, it becomes harder for you to attract those other people that may not be part of your base. So I just think that those things, in terms of, just the roadmap, the strategy, the messaging is so important. And I can go and tell you, I think the campaign slogans for each one of the winning presidents going back to 1980. And I can tell you, I don't remember the ones from the losing campaigns because they didn't necessarily click. I mean, when I think of Al Gore, I don't think of what his campaign slogan was. I think of, he wanted to put Social Security in a lockbox. When I think of Michael Dukakis, who wanted to become a moderate or be seen as a moderate, though he was from a liberal state like Massachusetts, he had a difficulty doing that. There were some other things that happened from a racially charged thing. And I think that one of the things that, for me, if I want to be successful, I got to look at how do my opponents win. I think it's important that people go back and look at how Lee Atwater won that 1998 campaign for President Bush, and why Bush had a hard time in 92 getting his message across when he had just come out of winning the Gulf War, when he had just got out of good relations in terms of with countries abroad, when nobody could remember anything but read my lips, no new taxes.
There's a part of me that doesn't have a problem, Atiba, to be candid with you, with Social Security in a lockbox. I think that tells Democrats and Republicans to keep their hand off of my little bitty check, because I need it for my groceries. I need it for my living assistance. I need it for my medical care. I need it for my children's education, if in fact I'm entitled to it. And so when Gore ran to protect Social Security, which is essentially telling Democrats and Republicans, hands off of Social Security, that is an economic issue. It does go to the heart of the survivability of people who, if they did not have Social Security, would find themselves without basic government funding. Now, when you take Social Security surpluses and start using them for other programs, or the Congress putting its hand in Social Security, engaging in different kinds of deficit spending on the basis of a guarantee that we gave to people that when they paid into the system, it would be there when their knees no longer worked, when their fingers had developed osteoporosis, when their backs were no longer straight, when their hair had fallen out, and we don't want to kick them on the street for a life of work. We want to have some kind of retirement program, some kind of floor beneath which no American should fall. And so I'm not so sure that, that the idea from Bill Clinton, quoting Bill Clinton, it's the economy, stupid, and quoting his right-hand guy, the raging Cajun, it's the economy, stupid, that these economic issues are lost, but putting them in a language where people down here, where we are, where we live, can understand it, becomes part of the transition of the language to explaining the economic issues.
Part of the where I'm talking about in these essays, and one of the essays is the audience matters. So when you're running for president, you're trying to get the majority of the votes and the majority of the electoral votes out of 340 million. And you're trying to get the electoral votes from 50 states. And I like to say that we have 50 states, but we literally have 50 states of mind. So it wasn't that Al Gore was wrong, and I won't say that Kamala or Hillary were wrong in terms of the context of where they were talking about. What I would say is that it has a place. And often that place is people are talking about things before they get the power. What did Biggie say? First you get the money, then you get the power. Well, first you get the votes, then you get the power. So, in order to get into the president's mansion, you have to win the majority of the votes, and you have to strategically know what your audience is and how you're going to get them. Lee Atwater was very good at code switching. He was very good at talking about states' rights, or getting his candidates to talk about states' rights and talk about issues that were contrary, that went against the very voters who he wanted to attract, those votes for President Bush. But they framed it in a way that made them, those very people that you mentioned, Lyndon Johnson's quote, those very same people thought that, well, it may hurt me, but it will hurt blacks more. That's the mentality. And that's the mentality that we're dealing with when we look at how do we win a winning election. And so for me, my whole thing is, and I will argue with this and debate this, and I'm not saying I'm completely right. I think I am, because I think we keep beating a dead horse wondering why we're getting the same result. And I think that we have to figure out that we need to have a better strategy and a different strategy, get the power so we can get what it is that we want to achieve.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. These are Conversations with Atiba on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Wealthy Wednesdays. More with Jesse Jackson and Atiba when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in a National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
The Black Hollywood Education and Resource Center proudly presents its 27th annual Real Black Men Short Film Showcase. Join us Saturday, October 25th at the Writers Guild Theater, 135 South Doheny Drive in Beverly Hills, California. This showcase will feature over 20 films by emerging black male filmmakers from across the country, ready to let their stories be seen, voices be heard, and visions come to life. Saturday, October 25th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tickets are on sale now on eventbrite.com. For more information, call 323-957-4656 or email bherc@bherc.org.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do you do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has worksource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. You ready?
You're invited to the KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair on Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Catch at Audubon Middle School in Leimert Park, 4120 11th Avenue. Join us for a day of health, healing, and community connection. There will be health screenings, immunizations, wellness information, a Catch Charter School recruitment fair, plus music and healthy snacks. And it's all free at the KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair, Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Audubon Middle School in Leimert Park, 4120 11th Avenue. Come out and bring the entire family. And if you have not yet checked out our KBLA Health and Wellness Hub, you should at KBLA1580.com. KBLA Talk 1580 thanks Catch Charter School, Prudential, Eastside, Cedar Sinai, and St. John's Community Health. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that a healthy community is a thriving community.
That's right, baby.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Wealthy Wednesdays and our conversations with Atiba. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks, Jesse. It's good to be here.
Atiba, let me just say this because I know that towards the end of our program, you're going to have your word of hope. And I have a question or two that I'd like to ask you. But I do think that my father in 1984, in a speech to the Democratic Convention, gave us a path forward. I don't have the quote in front of me, so I'm going to go off of memory. He said, we must move from racial battleground to economic common ground and on to moral higher ground. Our flag is red, white, and blue, but our nation is rainbow. Red, yellow, brown, black, and white, we're all precious in God's sight. I could teach a whole semester on that, maybe even a whole year's course on it if I were given the opportunity and I really had time to unpack it. But what it really says is racial battleground may very well always be our constant due to lack of understanding amongst people. But if we can all work together in the same factory, we can build a car together. If we can work together on a construction site, we can build a building together. If we can work together around a runway, we can build an airport together. If a foreign enemy is attacking us, we can fight in the same hole together. That might be the definition of coming together beyond racial battleground. But then there's this economic common ground where we can work together. And once we work together, moral higher ground, we can all sit down together and enjoy the football game. We can drink Budweiser and you can drink Pabst Blue Ribbon. We can have a good time, chuck it up, etc. But in the middle, to your point, there is the economy. There is this economic common ground that has to be sustained. It is not the constant. Racial battleground is the constant, but the economic common ground is not the constant. Sometimes the economy is doing well for some, and it's not doing well for everyone. The economy is not shared in the middle. Hence, some people are without healthcare. Some people are without housing. So there's this fight for economic common ground. There's this diversity, equity, and inclusion that you can't lock us out simply because of our race, our class, our color, our sexual preference. But if we do come together, you'll find out that the same Jesus you're worshiping is the same one I'm worshiping. The same God that you're worshiping is the same God that I'm worshiping. Moral higher ground. We find peace in that space. I think Jesse Jackson has given us a path forward on this question of the economy. There are a lot of details in between each one of those phases. But one thing, when we divide our politics consistent with our flag, we are blue, they are red, but from my perspective, right in the middle is white supremacy.
There's a lot to unpack there, and we have a few minutes. First off, your father's speech, I went back to that as I was doing this research, and it's, you're exactly right. It's a powerful way forward, and I encourage anyone to go and listen to it. Second is what I'm saying is that there was a difference of opinion between W.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. I think both of them were right. I keep telling people two things can be true. We keep getting into this idea that you have to be one way or the other, and I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Third thing is, when I'm telling this story, and to anyone who wants to, please go to novelsbyatiba.com and then click on blog and you can read it. And also you can check out, if you like the stories there, you can also check out my book. And I'm saying this because I've integrated stories and lessons into my book, but I'm telling this that on the website, it says stories that think. That's what the blog is for. I want people to be thinking, is there a better way forward? That's my hope, because we keep doing the same thing over and over again. And when someone says something that goes outside of what we're comfortable with, then we want to knock it as opposed to, maybe we should try that. We have been talking about race and division and sexism and sexual orientation in this country for so long. I have to go back and ask the question that I asked in the last essay, and I don't want to give it away because I really want people to read 8 and 9. But the question is, why don't Democrats tell this story? That President Reagan created 16 million jobs when he was president. President Bush created 2.7 million. President Bush II created minus 20,000. Trump in his first term, minus 2,700,000. Why did we go back to that? If you look at President Clinton created 16 million jobs. President Obama created 11.7 million jobs. President Biden created 16.6 million jobs. Why did we go back? We got back because we got caught up in the conversation about culture wars, which Steve Bannon said it. He said, if we make this election, or these elections about race, we will win. They are winning.
Atiba, a word of hope.
My hope is that we get out of this political quagmire that we find ourselves in. My hope is that every American recognizes that there's an apple pie, and that we, as the 330 million people, that there's a 0.5% of people that are eating the pie, and that the rest of us are picking up the crumbs. And we're fighting over crumbs when we should be fighting over the pie. We're directing our attention and our focus on different social culture wars, where we really should be looking at how are we recognizing that Hillary Clinton and her message of Stronger Together was right. I don't know if she necessarily told the story collectively in terms of the best way, in terms of how being stronger together makes us all economically better, makes us all socially better, makes our borders safer, makes us all safer. That having people who come from other countries into our country is not a bad thing. We are a nation of immigrants. As well as for Kamala, her message of we're not going back. Well, it's unfortunate we have gone back. But I think that we've gone back, and a lesson that I'm learning from my aunt, who's 106 years old, whose memory is incredible and impeccable. Though I'm seeing her body break down, the matter of her body, because she's 106, but her mind is still sharp. Her wit is still sharp. Her heart is still sharp. And above all that, she's still laughing in the midst of all this. So in terms of hope, we want to battle the fear and all the things that are going on. We will be stuck in the headlights. We will be stuck like a deer in headlights as long as we keep making this about the social wars and culture wars that the other side wants us to fight. We have to show the best example. We have to be the best. We've always had to be the best, but they brought the best of us from Africa here. They brought the best of us from other countries here. We are the best. America can be the best, but we will not be better than all of the rest if we continue to fight each other. If we continue to fight each other over things that are important to each of us, but may seem petty to someone else. If we want to listen or we want someone to hear us, we also have to listen to someone else. And all of us are connected in a spider web of the economy. And all of us are being impacted by it. These tariff wars that are going on, look back at World War I and World War II. Every war that we've been in, from a World War standpoint, were started because of an argument over tariffs. What we are seeing, what's going on, what's going on within our cities with the militarization and the weaponization or what have you, all of it is meant to keep us divided, to keep us from coming together. Because my major thing right now is 2026. We have to vote in numbers that are too large to manipulate the outcome.
Atiba, what can we do and where can we go to find your conclusion? Very quickly.
Novelsbyatiba.com, and you can click on blog. And as I said before, you can also click on and find out information about my book, Saving Grace. But to read the essays, it's novelsbyatiba.com and then click on blog.
It was great having a conversation with you this week.
It's great being with you. Thank you, Jesse.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Look forward to seeing you next week on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. S. Todd Urey, 1 foot in the pulpit and 1 foot in the courtroom.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A private investigator says he's identified who last drove the abandoned Tesla belonging to black singer David, where 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body was found in Hollywood.
I'm certain I know who it is. I can't say, but there is surveillance from the 29th.
Investigator Steve Fisher told KTLA he reviewed neighborhood footage from late July and turned it over to police. Former President Barack Obama will join Democrat Mikey Sherrill at a November 1st rally in Newark ahead of New Jersey's governor's race. President Trump backing Republican Jack Ciattarelli praised him on Truth Social while criticizing Sherrill. A new Rutgers Eagleton poll shows Sherrill leading by 5 points. And the White House is denying reports that President Trump is considering pardoning Sean Diddy Combs, who's serving 4 years for prostitution-related charges. TMZ claims Trump may commute his sentence this week, but officials tell NBC there's no truth to the report. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell announced Wednesday morning that the league is not replacing Latino superstar Bad Bunny as the main performer for the Super Bowl halftime show. Bad Bunny was picked in September by the NFL to perform at the Super Bowl of February 8th in Santa Clara, California. Conservative groups and some Republicans have been pressuring the NFL to take the Puerto Rico native off the show because of his criticism of President Trump and Trump's immigration policies. When Trump heard that Goodell is not replacing Bad Bunny, he called the decision crazy and ridiculous. This is an interesting situation for the NFL. Many of the league's 32 owners are privately Trump supporters and have donated to both of his presidential campaigns. The real test for the NFL is whether conservatives can convince advertisers to join them in boycotting the Super Bowl. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tavis Smiley with a final word here about the upcoming Left Coast Forum on Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. As you know by now, our major keynoters include Professor Richard Wolff and Dr. Cornel West. LA Mayor Karen Bass will be there as well. But listen to some of these plenaries: fighting for black students and educational equity, resilience under Trumpism, how to stay sane under fascism, the battle for democracy, what's at stake in 2026, healthcare under attack, fighting Trump's cuts, and building patient power from seed to system, building a local food economy in South LA, theater as a force for change, Voices from Palestine. The Constitution is not self-reinforcing. Racism on the left. Building communities of care, federal changes and their impact on healthcare in LA County. Committee for the First Amendment and more. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. We'll see you there.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. S. Todd Yeary, who is a minister. He has a foot in the pulpit with a PhD in theology and a law degree. He practices law every single day, and he preaches in Baltimore, Maryland. I do want to comment and make the bridge between the previous conversation and our conversation with Dr. Yeary by reading for 2 minutes an essay that I wrote on Facebook. I think Trump is deliberately using tariffs. That is the global economy, the power of the global economy, and the legitimate economic fears that his tariff wars create, particularly in red rural areas, so that he can blame the economic anxiety of the nation and the world that we all legitimately feel that he created on the racial and immigrant boogeyman. He creates the fear, then he tells his supporters to blame us to justify almost everything that he does, including but not limited to his military occupation. He's using the tariffs not to strengthen the American economy, because if he were, we would not be complaining, but to divide the people. He's picking their pockets. Lyndon Johnson said it this way: I'll tell you what's at the bottom of it all. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you. He's bankrupting farmers who live and plant seasonally, while the domestic and global economy is made up of customers who need to eat something every day. Dr. King said it this way: I have the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity and equality and freedom for their spirits. Why should there be a hunger and deprivation in any land, in any city, at any table, when man has the resources and the scientific know-how to provide all mankind with the basic necessities of life? There is no deficit in human resources. Martin Luther King Jr. said there is a deficit in human will. What kind of leader weaponizes food to pit people against each other? I prefer that we negotiate trade deals properly, that Congress, our representatives, the representatives of the people, participate in a thoughtful process that includes reciprocal trade and taxes and takes into account trade imbalances. Tariffs should not be used to be imposed by a mean, vindictive, nasty sovereign whose intention is to inflict pain on people around the world, even his own subjects or American citizens. What kind of leader posts an AI-generated meme dumping defecation on its citizens, subjects exercising their First Amendment rights? Using tariffs to stoke racial fears, the weight of the global economy and division is a crime against the Republic. Congress must rein in Donald Trump's tariffs and regain control of its authority and responsibility. He is deliberately creating an economic condition of desperation for all people, all citizens. He is changing the moral compass of the United States from a welcoming nation to an isolated one. He has no interest in bringing people together, and this is where our interests lie. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
That's how we start today. That's what we're doing.
That's exactly how we're starting today, because I can't take the words back that I just said. Dr. Yuri, what say you?
Well, let me start with the last part. He is keeping people together. It's the core of the elites that are really kind of the puppet masters to this unfortunate drama. We have to remember that this was not a veiled threat. This should not be a surprise. He basically said it was coming, and then they published a whole policy treatise called Project 2025 and said, if you want to see what's coming, read this. What does he say? I don't know anything about it. I haven't read it. He probably wasn't lying. He hadn't read it. He probably still hadn't read it.
Can he read?
I think he, well, except when he's trying to say acetaminophen, right? You know, that one was going to take a while. We would still be there waiting on him to get it out. So while he's organizing the top, let's say 1%, he's abusing the other 99% and creating such angst until it is the kind of destabilization you need if you're going to manage a chaotic process where the numbers, if you think about it, are not in your favor. Right? It's a simple math problem. If we've got 330 million people in the country, top 1% is 3.3 million people. The other 326.7 million people, if this just becomes an issue of attrition and organization, the numbers would say the larger number should win. So how do you keep the 327 roughly million people complicit with their own subjugation, their own oppression, if you don't do things like offend some to affirm others, to create this chaos, and then create a sense of fear that I might be next? And that's the reality that this president is using as a tool, the military, however he chooses. He's now punked, and I say that just the way it came out. He's punked the Supreme Court into basically doing his bidding whenever he comes running, because now they realize that they have no real enforcement power as the court. They can make a decree, but he's basically saying, I'm the executive. I get to decide what I'm going to enforce and what I'm not. So it's a real quandary. And if the people don't rise up in this moment, then we become basically endorsers of our own abuse.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. S. Todd Yuri. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. Todd, I want to talk with you when we come forward about the destruction of the People's House. For those of you who download the podcast, there is a picture of, Donald Trump having the flag waving above what looks like a bomb site at the White House, an image that no American can conceive of as a legitimate congressionally authorized activity. But he is determined to build some kind of big, beautiful ballroom that meets his own personal specifications. It makes you wonder whether or not Donald Trump is ever going to leave. I'm Jesse Jackson. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, KBLA Talk 1580. More with Todd Yuri when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
On Thursday evening, November 6th, you're invited to the next KBLA Talk 1580 Altadena Town Hall meeting. This time, we're convening at Victory Bible Church, 1497 North Hill Avenue in Pasadena. The town hall will once again be broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580 from 4 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, November 6th. But you're invited to join us in person for this urgent and necessary community conversation. The theme for this Altadena Eaton Canyon Fire Town Hall is Understanding the Wildfire Recovery Compensation Fund. The primary focus of this gathering is to inform residents about Southern California Edison's newly launched Wildfire Recovery Compensation Program and provide clarity on eligibility and the claims process. There are plenty of questions to be asked, and only KBLA Talk 1580 has the right moderators to ask the tough questions, the right stakeholders and community activists to share their insights, and we have confirmed the participation of corporate executives from Southern California Edison to answer our queries. So be sure to join us at Victory Bible Church in Pasadena, 1497 North Hill Avenue on Thursday, November 6th. The event is free and open to the public, but registration is required at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Light refreshments will be served immediately following the live town hall. This KBLA Talk 1580 Altadena Rising Town Hall is brought to you by Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers and the Black Freedom Fund.
Small businesses are the heart of America. But you don't have to go it alone. As the nation's largest nonprofit resource of expert business mentoring, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses for free. Get the connections, education, and guidance you need with SCORE. We're ready to help. Find a mentor today at score.org.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest is none other than Dr. S. Todd Yeary. Dr. Yeary is the principal of the Yeary Firm, a Maryland-based litigation and government relations firm, and also serves as senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church of Baltimore, Maryland, and affiliates. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Always good to be with you. Serious times require serious conversations, and this is a serious conversation every Wednesday. I appreciate you.
Dr. Yeary, thank you for that, and thank you for making it serious, because I need to be lighthearted some Wednesdays, man. This thing's a little rough. Now, I'm having some psychological effects because there's certain symbols in my mind that define America. The Washington Monument, the Capitol of the United States, the Lincoln Memorial. But this assault on the White House by Trump's vision without the approval of Congress or the authorization of appropriations for its purpose, the White House has got to be some kind of national monument where presidents have made various decisions in various quarters, corners, moments, tens of thousands of meetings, both public and private, amazing stories in every single room, where John F. Kennedy was when he lied in state at the White House. All of these are national monuments, national treasuries, national memories of what Americana, of what it means to be in America. He's taken a wrecking ball to that, not unlike his politics and not unlike what he's doing to the economy. Your thoughts on the psychological ramifications of the physical dismantling of things that we know are taking place behind the scenes, but some of the things he's doing symbolically and factually can never be repaired again.
All right, so
get him some Starbucks. Get that man.
Yeah. I guess we're going to have to go here. Listen. You have a developer president who is trying to figure out how he can build some stuff. And so he says, all right, the east wing of the White House, originally built at the turn of the 20th century, expanded under FDR, supposedly to obscure the bunker in the event of some war. So I don't think it is coincidental that this isn't just about a ballroom. He's not just looking to have a party. He's looking to have a fortress. All right. You raised a point before the break about whether or not this president intends to leave. He's already told you he's got hats that say Trump 2028, but he told us before he made the hat that this last election would be the last election that we would need to vote in. And so if we kind of connect the dots of what would otherwise be scattered thinking, he is telling us that he has no intention of leaving. He's got a crew of folks who are basically doing the demolition on norms in terms of how the government has typically operated. And they're doing it according to a racialized hierarchy that is reinforced by basically one's personal balance sheet. And so when we look at what this is because this is good talk radio. I'm not trying to get nobody censored, but there's an acronym FAFO.
What that mean?
well, I give you part of it. We're finding out.
Okay.
We're finding out.
We got the FO.
Okay,
We got
yeah. And if you got the FO, you can figure out the FA. So we have FA'd and allowed ourselves to be caught up in this predicament because of this notion, this lie that he would be a benign, harmless president who comes in basically telling us that he's creating this false narrative. People from the South are coming to take black jobs. What were the original black jobs? In the field. All right. Next thing you got is I'm going to just blow up some speedboats out here in the middle of nowhere using ordnance that costs millions of dollars to produce. I'm going to blow up a boat that may not even be seaworthy because it supposedly has a lot of drugs on it. It's all a mockery. And so what he's going to do is he's assaulted the integrity and the credibility of the government. He's assaulting and threatening other sovereign nations. And he's going to continue to wreak chaos wherever he can to keep us psychologically destabilized where we can't put up any real resistance. So the ballroom, it's a joke. There's a bunker under there. He's got something else going on. I want to know who's coming to the party because after he spends $200 million, you and I won't get an invitation. Now, you know, if he has his way. So my thing is,
therefore, Counselor, Reverend, whatever he's building it's going to be deeper than the ballroom. There's going to be something under this thing, right?
Yeah.
He's building something under the bunker. He's building something under the ballroom.
Yeah. He's telling us, y'all gonna have to come get me. And if I control the military, and I'm proving that I can be the national police force on a whim, and the courts have realized that because I now have presidential immunity, which is as close to absolute immunity as you can get without it being absolute immunity, that he's realized that who in the executive branch, there's no local government that's going to come take him into custody. The federal officers have to do what he's telling them to do. Although we say that they don't have to take an illegal order. We'll see how that plays out. And in the meantime, he's substituted capable, credible, stable military officers for what would otherwise be called some Yahoo from some farm somewhere, just because he can string a sentence together. And you put him in charge of the most lethal fighting force on the planet today. I mean, everybody else watching it, even the cats on the corner. If I go out, I'm at the church now. If I walk outside right now and I talk to some of the homies on the street, they're like, y'all can't critique us. If this is what you will allow in such an obvious way, as if you didn't see this coming, then if y'all got hustled this easily, you shouldn't be running the government either.
We have an undeclared war in South America and now the Caribbean. We have unauthorized CIA activity in foreign countries around the world. Even the leaders whom we have strong disagreements with are suggesting that it's about regime change. It's about a coup. It's about taking over their country and their critical mineral reserves and their oil and getting lower prices for their purposes. He's changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. The only thing that he hasn't done, which is scary as hell, is use SEAL Team 6 on the American people. That small group of SEAL operatives, the best trained troops on planet Earth, the most sophisticated of the Navy Department of Clandestine Operations, to literally, physically eliminate American opposition, and you won't even know that they didn't die of natural causes. You will perceive them to have died of natural causes. That's the kind of power that the President of the United States is wielding at this hour, and the only thing that we have not seen is what he might do with SEAL Team 6. And it's already been talked about. It's been talked about in congressional hearings. It's been talked about in the Senate. So I'm not raising anything that has not already been said. In fact, it was, I think, argued before the Supreme Court of the United States that the President of the United States, theoretically, from their perspective, could use SEAL Team 6 whenever and wherever he wanted to, including domestically. And that is about as outrageous and catastrophic as it can possibly get. Dr. Ure, I want to turn our attention for a moment to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I decided last night to type in my Google search just various congressional districts that are threatened. Today, the North Carolina legislature has passed a plan eliminating an African-American congressional district. The two congressmen in the state of Alabama have raised concerns about their state's redistricting efforts that could affect the Figures district as well as the Sewell district. Emanuel Cleaver has rung the alarm bell for the Missouri congressional district. I shared with Barbara Arnwine yesterday that there is talk of redrawing, which would be catastrophic, the congressional district of Jim Clyburn in South Carolina. You know the impact that that has on the Democratic Party's primary process and the role that African Americans have played under his leadership, including saving the Obama campaign in South Carolina, saving the Joe Biden campaign. It led and challenged Joe Biden in South Carolina to appoint a Black woman to the ticket and to promise Black people a Supreme Court justice in the form of Ketanji Brown Jackson, and so forth and so on and so forth and so on. In this moment, I don't feel like the Democratic Party, which hailed and touted and honored John Lewis, sees anything other than itself. I get that, right? We need some group of people to fight with us and for us, but increasingly, Dr. Ure, it looks like it's coming at our expense.
Yeah. So this has always been the fundamental math problem. We have often critiqued and at other times bemoaned why it is that we seem to find a whole litany of incompetence to be able to assume public office. And it's because, if we go back to civics, first civic principle we learn is that majority rules, right? It's kind of parliamentary procedure. But the truth of the matter is the majority of those who participate rules. The rest of us get jammed up.
That's
so
deeper.
If the majority of let's say in a midterm election, you typically might not see 50% overall voter turnout in some of these races. So if a majority of the minority is now determining what happens to all of us, then the rest of us, the real majority, have to assume some responsibility for the harm that we're doing to the nation and its principles or its goals and objectives because of our own apathy and indifference. And so, look, they're going to keep playing these games. They're moving maps. They're drawing things because he wants control. And the reason they're going to redraw the congressional maps, the House maps, is because the House of Representatives, this, Congressman, This man loves one thing and one thing only. And the one thing he loves when it comes to public money, all of those bills originate in the House of Representatives. So if he doesn't have the House, and there's no way for a Senate, if the Senate takes up a House bill that crosses the chamber, and they're not able to kind of add something to it because of what the parliamentarian may say is a procedural error, then he's got a problem. So on one hand, if he's already stacked the deck with the Senate majority, he's trying to protect the money, public money, by having a House majority. He's shrinking the size of government, but he's in terms of the middle class stability of folks who had historically been left out. And we've got a fit on our hands because this dude is just getting started. When I looked at the calendar the other day, I was like, he's only been here 9 months.
It's hard to imagine that we have 3 months, 3 years and 3 months to go. I mean, it's hard to imagine. You know, let me just make 2 observations, if I might. Your thoughts on the $230 million shakedown. We have 1 minute. $230 million shakedown of the Justice Department for his previous criminal convictions. I think every debt-paid felon in America would love to be reimbursed for the process that they went through. And we just can't be reimbursed. Some of us, including myself, have lost our homes in foreclosure as a result of these criminal processes. Is that the exception, or is that the new rule?
I want to see the complaint because I'm trying to figure out how he's going to be plaintiff and by extension, the defendant respondent at the same time.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. S. Todd Yeary. We are more the wealthier after we get finished hearing a gentleman who has 1 foot in the pulpit and 1 foot in the courtroom. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA with Dr. Yeary when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Illinois Governor J.P. Pritzker is pushing back against Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson's plan to reinstate a corporate head tax on large businesses.
It makes it very hard to attract companies from outside of Chicago to come into Chicago and harder for companies that are in Chicago to stay.
Johnson's 2026 budget counts on $100 million from the tax to help close Chicago's $1 billion deficit. A Lakers fan, Andrew Garcia, has dropped his lawsuit against LeBron James after spending $850 on tickets thinking James was retiring. The second decision tease turned out to be an ad prompting the short-lived fraud claim. And Black Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser is urging the city council to make the city's youth curfew permanent to boost public safety. The summer policy expanded curfew zones and included 17-year-olds, but it expired this month after the council declined to extend it. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Is this the takeover? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell announced Wednesday morning that the league is not replacing Latino superstar Bad Bunny as the main performer for the Super Bowl halftime show. Bad Bunny was picked in September by the NFL to perform at the Super Bowl of February 8th in Santa Clara, California. Conservative groups and some Republicans have been pressuring the NFL to take the Puerto Rico native off the show because of his criticism of President Trump and Trump's immigration policies. When Trump heard that Goodell is not replacing Bad Bunny, he called the decision crazy and ridiculous. This is an interesting situation for the NFL. Many of the league's 32 owners are privately Trump supporters and have donated to both of his presidential campaigns. The real test for the NFL is whether conservatives can convince advertisers to join them in boycotting the Super Bowl. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. Let's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Taft Forum on Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. As you know by now, our major keynoters include Professor Richard Wolff and Dr. Cornel West. LA Mayor Karen Bass will be there as well. But listen to some of these plenaries: fighting for Black students and educational equity, resilience under Trumpism, how to stay sane under fascism, the battle for democracy, what's at stake in 2026, healthcare under attack, fighting Trump's cuts, and building patient power from seed to system, building a local food economy in South LA, theater as a force for change, voices from Palestine. The Constitution is not self-reinforcing, racism on the left, building communities of care, federal changes and their impact on healthcare in LA County, Committee for the First Amendment, and more. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. We'll see you there.
The Black Hollywood Education and Resource Center proudly presents its 27th annual Real Black Men Short Film Showcase. Join us Saturday, October 25th at the Writers Guild Theater, 135 South Doheny Drive in Beverly Hills, California. The showcase will feature over 20 films by emerging Black male filmmakers from across the country, ready to let their stories be seen, voices be heard, and visions come to life. Saturday, October 25th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tickets are on sale now on eventbrite.com. For more information, call 323-957-4656 or email bherc@bherc.org. September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that hits Black families hardest. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and it's not a normal part of aging. Early signs like repeating questions, missed appointments, even trouble handling bills might seem small, but they matter. The good news? There are treatment options available that may slow AD when diagnosed early. Don't wait. Visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more. This message is brought to you by AZI.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Mark your calendar. Next Tuesday on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show is Dr. Jim Zogby. Where are we now? In Gaza. Dr. Zogby is the president of the Arab American Institute, president and founder, and a former member of the board of the Rainbow Push Coalition, and he's one of the highest-ranking Arab Americans in the Democratic Party. He'll be our special guest next Tuesday. Dr. Yeri, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Next Tuesday is going to be a great conversation. Jim Zogby is going to give us some good perspective. I'm looking forward to it.
He's an amazing leader and very balanced. Let me ask this question of you, and I was thinking about it just before the break. Was Joe Biden our last non-billionaire president, Democrat or Republican?
No, I don't think so. I think he's the last one for a while. Depending on how entrenched this seizing of power goes. But I do believe that eventually the fiction that has been imposed upon us as race is going to come tumbling down about the time that regular, everyday white people realize that their whiteness has not benefited them. When they figure out that they've been hustled by, the rich white dudes and others running around giving this impression that somehow or other DEI is responsible for their misery and their malady, I think it will begin to lead to the kind of shifting that's going to be necessary for coalition building that's going to have to come back starting at the states, right? And so I think it is that you have, first of all, can we get a legit billionaire? Let's start there. Because now he's probably a legit billionaire now because everybody's paying him off to settle,
Michael Cohen said on our show that his goal in this term is to be a trillionaire. That these critical mineral deals include his family. They're not necessarily for the country and the economy. That's why there's so much anxiety in the land. He's using the language of it's good for America, but he has defined himself as America. What he's really saying is it's good for him. It's good for it's good for the group of people that are around him, and it's good for him personally. It's not to the benefit of the American people. And the chaos in Congress itself contributes to the lack of accountability of the sovereign, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, how do we even give it? It's day 22.
2.5 million people are going to be off food stamps in about 2 to 3 weeks at the most. That kind of desperation of people knocking on the doors of people's homes, standing in the middle of the streets, talking about their families needing something to eat, the possibility of grocery stores and other large supermarkets experiencing retail theft are real realities when people can't eat, Todd.
Real realities, and it shows just how deep the manipulation is of the most vulnerable by those who have no concern about the harm that might be done. Here's what I think I kind of anticipate. Well, first thing is, the beauty of monopoly is that monopoly has its own money. And we talked about the mindset of monopoly. Monopoly comes with a banker. And so now you have this dude who basically has hijacked the treasury, changing what can be done. And he's spending basically monopoly money. It's public money. You've got a $4+ trillion annual budget. You give me $16 to $20 trillion to direct to specific interest over 4 years. And you get all kinds of curious deals off to the side, right? When the U.S. starts buying ownership interests in privately held companies or public companies for that matter, it's a different kind of reality. He is setting up, I think, an economic fiefdom to benefit his family. But it's coming at a time when I think the awareness of regular people, the slumber, the hibernation of the electorate writ large is coming to an end. And it's just a matter of how they're going to direct themselves. I still think that folks of goodwill and serious thought, let the parties do what the parties do, come out of the party system, hold yourself out, let them fight over who they're going to put up. At the end of the day, elections are about agendas. And if the agenda gets set after you've pandered to the political party, they always seem to have to come back to the independents to be able to figure out who's going to swing the outcome of the election. If we keep our vote independent, that we can then leverage it in the transaction. It's a transactional conversation about my vote and the things that I want. Now we can negotiate differently without this sense that one party or the other feels like they have the exclusive entitlement to the endorsement of a group of people without delivering in their interest.
To your point, 2,600 cities, more than 7 million people protested No King Day. They've now promised a third No King Day. Whenever they come to the idea that at some point in time, the No King Day movement will descend upon Washington, D.C., is it in your thinking that it will be to depose a dictator? And what are the consequences of that?
That's
7 million people in D.C. surrounding the White House saying the dictator has to go and we're not leaving until he does.
Well, here's where I think we have to remember that the callousness of the American government cannot be underestimated. We have to remember that they used U.S. aircraft to devastate and just kind of obliterate Greenwood in Tulsa. That was government action. We have to remember that when this president says that to the generals and the senior commissioned and non-commissioned officers that, since your oath said you're going to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, well, maybe I need to use you in the streets of the country to come up against domestic challenges to the Constitution. We have to remember that this president, if there are masses of people that are showing up, he's radical enough, not in a good way, but in a sense of instability, that he will rely on the military. And I don't discount that there might be some false justification to use lethal and deadly force against U.S. citizens. That's the danger of where we are. And so a revolution and a revolt has to be a political resistance in the form of every election, whenever the election comes up. I don't care if they're having an election about when to hold the election. We have to be engaged in the process, lest we surrender to this president's whims. And he's already indicated that there is no sense of fairness, there is no sense of equity, there is no sense of justice that he's bound to. Just look at the indictments that have come down recently for his political enemies, and that list continues to grow. And when you can get an indictment on some of the stuff that these folks have been indicted for, none of us is safe out in these streets.
Dr. Yuri, about 45 seconds before we come forward. I'm thinking in this moment that to ask you the question, and maybe it has to be answered after we do come forward, whether or not, regardless of how the political lines are drawn, and regardless of, God forbid, the large number of African Americans who may not be returning and Hispanics to the Congress of the United States, collectively, are the American people angry enough that whatever these congressional districts ultimately look like in 2026, are they angry enough to return control of the House to the sanity of the Democratic Party in this critical hour? I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. S. Todd Yuri on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward, and the answer to that question with Dr. Todd Yuri when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in the National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
I found out that one of my players was vaping, and I said, hey, right now it's time to be honest with me. He said almost everybody in my team was vaping. The next day, all the parents came in. I said, how many of you guys think that your kids are vaping? Not one of them raised their hand. There's a joint fight to make something better. We don't sit back and let it happen.
Coach Sanchez is exposing Big Tobacco's playbook. Learn how he and other Californians are beating Big Tobacco at undo.org.
The Black Hollywood Education and Resource Center proudly presents its 27th annual Real Black Men Short Film Showcase. Join us Saturday, October 25th at the Writers Guild Theater, 135 South Doheny Drive in Beverly Hills, California. The showcase will feature over 20 films by emerging Black male filmmakers from across the country, ready to let their stories be seen, voices be heard, and visions come to life. Saturday, October 25th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tickets are on sale now on eventbrite.com. For more information, call 323-957-4656 or email bherc@bherc.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? Prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease or AD. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? You may be able to reduce your risk by managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure, being physically active, eating healthy, and exercising your mind. To learn more about AD, the importance of early diagnosis and intervention, and a potential treatment option, visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the final segment of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. S. Todd Yeary. Dr. Yeary is the president and founder of the Yeary Firm, a government litigation service. He is both a pastor and a lawyer. He's got one foot in the courtroom and one foot in the pulpit. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and your show on Wealthy Wednesdays. Once you unmute yourself, we can hear you, Dr. Yeary. I don't think we can hear Dr. Yeary. I don't know what happened to Dr. Yeary. So, Dr. Yeary, I can give you a chance to come back in. I'm going to keep talking until you do. One of the questions that I have for Dr. Yeary is whether or not those of us who claim to be supportive of no kings and the authoritarian regime of Donald John Trump, whether or not we are angry enough to not care about the lines one way or the other in 2026 and just vote, well, with the only political party that's available to us, the Democratic Party. We may have our problems within the Democratic Party, but now ain't the time to be talking about this and talking about that because we got to stop this. Dr. Yeary?
Can you hear me now?
I certainly can.
All right. So a couple of things. I think we have to be much more sophisticated in our political responses. Some responses may require a different approach. What are we doing with local elections, right? How do we approach state elections? How do we approach national elections first with House seats, but then statewide competitions for U.S. Senate, and then, of course, for the executive?
Because 1/3 of the Senate is up in 2026.
1/3 of the Senate is up. And many of the Republican seats that are up are believed to be relatively safe, but that's before we begin to see the fallout from some of the harm of the big ugly bill starting in January, right? This kind of delayed implementation. So I think the conversation really has to be around interests. Farmers are hurting. It was kind of assumed that Black farmers would be hurting anyway, because that seemed to be the norm. But now all farmers seem to be very concerned. When the president signs a deal, I think he's importing beef from somewhere, supposedly with a deal the other day. What does that do to cattle farmers, right? When we think about workers, when we think about public servants, teachers, emergency personnel, government workers, right? Government public sector jobs help produce a solid middle class in places where there had never been a middle class. And so it's around those interests that I think get beyond party labels, because the label that says you're this, and really the distinctions are, Democrats believe that the federal government has a responsibility to address prioritized needs of the people writ large. The government has that ability. The government should use that ability. Republicans feel like small government is better and the state should have more autonomy to make decisions. We would expect that because this is kind of the idea that flows from the resistance to the passage of the 14th Amendment at the end of the Civil War. So in this fight, we're like, okay, it's kind of like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Because on one side, you've got overtly hostile politics. On the other side, at times, it appears you have perfectly impotent politics. I'm not sure which one is more dangerous. One that's overtly hostile versus one that is, questionable in terms of its utility at best. I think the people just we have to be very sophisticated, and we may even have to infiltrate. Here's the radical thing, if you want to think about it. Who's going to go inside enemy lines? Who's going to penetrate the Republican Party?
I'm following you, General Yuri.
Right? Let's find some folks.
Well, let me ask this question, because I think that was my next question, and I know that your word of hope is in preparation. It seems to me that beyond the anger and the unity associated with what created the dynamic for the No Kings March, quite possibly the largest protest for social justice, for a constitutional government in the history of the world, given that the American experiment is amongst the newest experiments and the catalyst for 192 other democratic experiments around the world that largely modeled their constitution after the U.S. Constitution. I'm wondering if No Kings Part 3 or Part 4 and Part 5 ought to put an emphasis on turning the participants into voter registrars who go back home with a commitment to register 10, 20, 30 people to vote themselves. Whatever local classes at the local level, at the local state board of elections, are required for you to become a local deputy registrar in your local jurisdiction. And ain't nobody asking you to do it full time, but you can register people to vote on your job, in your school, in your church, in your place of work. If just 10% of us, how about 1% of 7 million? What's that, 70,000? 10%, 700,000 people concluded that after the march, rather than just wearing our little outfits and carrying our signs, which are all very important for standing up to authoritarianism, we made the commitment to transform our pain into voter registration power. We need to recheck the rolls anyway, because you might not find out you're unregistered to vote until you vote this time, because they may have already thrown you off the rolls. It just seems we ought to double down on democracy with this mass movement. And that seems to me to be a small request to save our democratic republic. Your response, Dr. Yuri, and then if you can transition it into your word of hope.
I think I'll tie them both together. You've laid out the fundamental challenge, and it is, so what? We had millions of people in the street. So what? How do we follow that up? Is it just that we wanted to be counted and be part of a story, or is this to create the momentum that begins the process of taking back the democracy that belongs to us? That's the so what question. So what's your so what? Register. Let's start with, are you registered? Do you vote? What are we going to do? I think those are the challenges that we have. But the other big piece that I think is really, really important that you've laid it out there is if a march is only meaningful if there is a call to action that flows from it. Otherwise, 7 million people got exercised. What we gonna do? And use words that regular folks use, right? We understand authoritarianism. If I go outside this, if we're talking to like young cats, they're not trying to know what authoritarian. They know what this dude's crazy. They know what that means. They know that I'm having a hard time finding a place to lay my head, putting food on the table. They understand that. We've got to translate this into what's needed. And all I'm going to say is, what do we say to these things? Say is not speaking. Saying is doing. Let's do it, and let's do it together.
Dr. Uri, I want to say that that's as profound as it gets. I think somewhere in the I Have a Dream speech, or certainly one of his final speeches, Martin Luther King Jr. said, go back to Alabama, go back to Stone Mountain, Georgia, go back to Tennessee. Let's go back and do the work. Let's go back and register people to vote. Let's go back and turn our pain into power. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This has been Wealthy Wednesdays with the wealthiest voice that I know, Dr. S. Todd Uri, 1 foot in the pulpit, 1 foot in the courtroom. Dr. Uri, welcome. Thank you for your contribution.
Always good to be with you.
More on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580 when we return tomorrow.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.